Alrighty, it's time to jump on the bandwagon. It's my birthday! I am 28 now, and I've decided I want to do special birthday videos. Earlier this year I realised, I'm turning 28 this year. I started playing my first instrument at 8. That means I've been playing instruments for 20 years. So I have decided to have a sit down and go through all of my instruments and just tell you how I came across them. I've had the idea of talking about how I picked up all my instruments for a while now, so finally getting onto it is kind of cool. So I'm just going to go through in chronological order of when I picked everything up. I will be splitting this up over 2 parts because I will talk a lot. There's a lot to talk about. So yeah, 7 to 8 instruments in 20 years. Let's go. Just something to mention. I thought because it's my birthday, I might try and pretty myself up by putting a bit of effort into makeup. Kind of walked out of my bathroom and I was like, oh yeah, no, I didn't really do much. You know, I tried contouring, but nothing's really happened. And then I looked in the next mirror in the hallway and then I was like, oh crap, that's a different person. So from what I can see, the makeup is a lot more visible here than when I was putting it on for some reason. I'm not sure if I actually like it, but we're already here, so let's just keep going. So the very first instrument that I learnt, and yeah, I'm pretty sure, I definitely remember being 8 when I started. For whatever reason, Mum and Dad just gave my sister and I recorders one day. And in the Band Wagon, the character who is on the recorder is Nesta Felice. But yeah, so that was, at some point in 2002, I would assume the later half, because obviously my birthday is in August, but I definitely remember being 8, so it was 2002, got recorders, and then my sister and I just kind of, as 8-10-year-olds do, we just started playing them for like the entire day, and we were trying to figure out actual music notes and melodies. And then after, I don't know however long, it might have been part of their plan from the beginning, then Mum and Dad asked us, oh, do you actually want to learn this properly, because you're already trying to do songs. I think, we were trying to do hot cross buns, the really basic songs. And then we were like, yeah, cool, we want to do this. But then my sister was like, no, but I want to do the one on the side. So I continued on recorder, and then my sister learnt 5 flute. So it wasn't too long, and then we got some lessons at the school. Yeah, I remember like every Tuesday morning I had a recorder lesson. I can't remember if I was in a lesson of just other recorder players or if my sister was there but on 5 flute, because we played the same songs and the teacher taught both, so she was just able to individually teach us, this is the fingering for this note, this is the fingering for this note. But yeah, that was pretty cool. And then I can't remember why there was a thing, but there was a thing at our primary school. There was like this musical performance sort of thing for that song. What is it? I can't think of it off the top of my head. It was really popular. What a Wonderful World. That song, for some reason, they needed recorders to play a couple of parts in it. And then they decided, oh, we have some recorder players in our school. Get them to do it. So me and I think another person, while this performance was going on, we then were told we have to go up and kind of like behind a screen, I guess, so that we didn't freak out about playing or something, because I know we were behind a screen as we were playing, and the rest of everyone else, like, and the entire school was like watching it, I'm pretty sure as well. Yeah, so we went behind the screen, we got the count in, like the teacher was with us. I know my sister did actually play a little bit of recorder as well, so I don't know if she was maybe there with me too. But yeah, so the song, the band, the people that were playing the song, and then my teacher was counting us in, and then there was just a extra part with the recorder to go over, and then me and whoever else that was with me, we just played with them. So don't know why that actually was a thing, but it's kind of cool. And then I think it must have been in 2003 at that point, because for some reason we weren't doing lessons at the school anymore, but then we were still having lessons with the teacher. We were just now going to her house for it. And I used to live in Roxby Downs, so you know, just a small town, always road everywhere. So it's kind of fun because I feel like then my sister and my lessons, because the teacher taught us both at the same time, so then because she had both of us, we were able to do a couple of duet pieces. So I'm pretty sure then it was 6 o'clock on a Monday night, my sister and I would ride to our teacher's place and have our music lessons. And it was kind of funny because when I was younger, we lived in a rental property, and then we built a house, and then we moved in there. The teacher pretty much lived a couple of doors down from our rental place. So it was kind of funny to then ride back to that part of town and then see the playground that was down the road and then just be like, oh yeah, like it's this place. That is something that was a bit of a shock to the system, and I didn't understand why it was so difficult when we moved to Adelaide, to a city, because I didn't really understand why I couldn't just walk everywhere or ride. Like I always did that at Roxby because, you know, what else are you gonna do when you're 10 years old and need to get to your friend's place? You just ride there. But yeah, but that's a little off topic. I want to try and keep to the point, which is very hard for me. However, that is pretty much my origin story of the recorder, because then in 2004, beginning of the year, January, then we did move to Adelaide. So I was 9, turning 10 that year. So my sister is 2 years older than me, and I have a brother that is 4 years younger than me. So mum and dad, because they were from Adelaide as well, thought maybe we'll move back to the city, and we've got family and such. And because we're going to be in the city, that'll give more options for the kids in the future for potential job and stuff. And of course, you know, we didn't want to move just because, yeah, our lives were there, but you know, we're kids. It was kind of cool though, because my dad did work in the mines, and I had a best friend, and in the holidays, dad still worked at Roxby, but in the holidays he would bring my friend up to come and hang out or take me over there while he worked. So that was thinking back, that was a really cool thing, that I could still have like a long distance relationship with my friend still. But yeah, that was pretty neat. But anyway, second instrument, clarinet. We also moved when we did because mum and dad also wanted all three of us to be in primary school at the same time. So I was in year 4, my sister was in year 6, and my brother was reception or year 1. And then they thought, because my sister would go off to high school in a couple of years, they're like, no, there's a couple of years where all three of them are together in the same school. So after a while, I was on the computer in the computer room, because there used to only be one per house. I was on the computer and mum just kind of, you know, yells at me, Steph, you want to learn clarinet? What's a clarinet? It's like a big recorder. Yeah, all right. and that was it. So it was pretty cool because at my primary school, it was right next to a high school. So it was my primary school here, they've got like the oval, then there was a small road here, and then that was the high school right there. So what they offered, I don't know why, flute and clarinet, the high school offered some of the primary school kids to learn it up at the high school. So I upgraded from recorder to clarinet, and my sister upgraded from fife flute to flute. When it was time for our lessons, about 5-10 minutes, we'd leave the primary school, walk up to the high school, into the music suite, which was all the way at the back of the frickin' school, and we would have our lessons there. And of course, I was amazing on clarinet straight away because I'd been playing recorder for 2 years, so I already kind of knew how to do stuff. I'm waiting for you.
quiet as possible so I can hear your recording.
Yeah. Don't know if I want to keep this running or pause it and get rid of it. I might have to pause it. Interruptions. I also forgot to mention, so we've got clarinet, and in the Band Wagon, that is a Ruthless Marshall on clarinet. I'm still working out the little bits and pieces just to sprinkle on a backstory, but it's coming together pretty well. I'm actually pretty keen for that. I like how it's building up. So what was I saying? So in primary school, we went over to the high school to learn our instruments. Again, I'm pretty sure they were at the same time, all the way at the back of the high school in the music suite. Now, I want to take this moment to introduce the character. I was iffy about whether I should be saying my real teacher's names, but I'm kind of like I'm gonna need to say their names so that you know who I'm talking about, instead of just the teacher who did this, the teacher who did that, the teacher who did this, the teacher who did that. So over at the high school, they had the two music teachers who were Miss Baker and Mr. Duncan. So because over there, 10 years old pretty much, learning clarinet there, we got to know them. So now that's just to kind of make a point of met them in 2004. Okay, just save this information for later because we're gonna need it. So I can't remember if it was the same for some other people that started clarinet and flute at the same time my sister and I did, because I'm a horrible person and I don't remember any information about anyone else because I'm important more. Yeah, that's it. But after about a year or so, I don't know which one it was. It might have been Mr. Duncan, but either Mr. Duncan or Miss Baker asked some of us primary school kids if we would like to join the high school band. So, that was kind of a big deal. So there were 2 high school bands at that time. Well, I think there was actually 3, but at that time I was not aware of the 3rd because they practiced at different times. So there was the concert band, which played the concert band pieces, kind of like, if you don't know what a concert band is, it's kind of like an orchestra, but I've noticed that orchestras kind of tend to focus more on stringed instruments, whereas a concert band, from what I've gathered from listening to the differences between the two, the concert band has more woodwind and brass. Well, there's still technically brass in orchestral, I think, but they both do similar types of music, but the instrument range in the bands is slightly different. So there was the concert band, and Miss Baker was the conductor for that, but then we ended up becoming being recruited into Mr. Duncan's, what we all called it, the mini big band. So I think it was maybe Tuesday mornings we had our lessons with our teacher. We went over to the high school, and then Thursday mornings, a little bit earlier than when school starts, we went to the high school again, and then we had our big band lessons, well, practices and stuff. And I remember a couple of points, just, to show off to parents, this is what we've all been working on this year. All us kids would do a performance for the parents to show the pieces we've been working on. So those were kind of interesting. And it was, I don't know what point it was, but I think for whatever reason that I was not aware of, the mini big band kind of stopped. So then we all kind of shoved over into the concert band. And so the concert band takes part in a couple of competitions throughout the year, and one of them that I don't know if it's the proper name for it, but that was the school or college that we held the competitions at. The mid-year one for the big concert band one was Westminster. So again, my sister and I, we were part of the band. I'm pretty sure we did at least one Westminster competition in the high school when we were still in primary school. The rest of that is kind of fuzzy because also I have a love-hate relationship with clarinet. I've just remembered I've forgotten some recorder stuff. I'm probably talking too much, so I guess I'll just leave it out. So something that happens when you're a child and you do things that your peers do not do, and you are more involved with hobbies and activities and other people don't and deem your hobbies and activities uncool. You yourself find them uncool and loathsome. So I think I'm gonna give you a bit of a gifted child story in this, because look, in all honesty, it is relevant and it's, yeah. So played clarinet, played really well, was playing with bands that were technically like above my level. However, some of the players in the band, they still had the same amount of time playing their instruments as I had, but it was just the fact that I was in primary school with that and they had only just started in high school. So we had the same level of experience, so that's why I was a child, you know, we're all children, but that's why I'm like an 11-year-old, 12-year-old able to be in a high school band with like, you know, 13-year-olds plus. However, because I was so good and gifted and amazing at it, all that did was kind of pushing me further and further away from my own peers. And then I think it was just the thing of, I'm 12 now and clarinet's not cool anymore. I think that was kind of a bigger thing, the biggest part about it. But also with music and a couple of other school subjects, because I did so well, I kept getting bumped up to doing those subjects in the higher year level classes. And just a little PSA, is that the right word? I don't know. To any potential parents out there, just because your child has the ability to keep going above and above and above and be better, consider whether or not they want to. I think the biggest thing that made me dislike clarinet most of all is because after a while, after so many years of doing it and after being so amazing, I then was not asked about if I wanted to do something or not. So this kind of does lead back into my recorder story that I forgot to mention. In primary school, they also just happened to give the students like a bunch of recorders, and we all started getting lessons. So I was like in there being amazing because I've been playing the damn thing for 2 years. So I think that teacher was Mr. Chapman. That's what we're going with anyway. So he also had a little sort of recorder band, and he also played the euphonium, I think it was. So then of course I joined that, my sister joined that, and then so we both swapped between me, recorder and clarinet, her 5 flute and the bigger flute. And then we also learnt a couple of other different recorders, like I think one was treble recorder and there was another type of recorder, but I can't remember. I know, just to get some deeper recorders to get a different sound for just a couple of songs. And again, in hindsight, like that was fine, like the band was kind of fun until I started hating everything. So I remember I just had a breaking point, I think. I was in year 6, so I think I was 12. Yeah, I think I just got to the point where I just really disliked having to be in higher level things, like for my age kind of thing, and just being separate from everything else. And then just, you know, at the time it was kind of like, oh, you're smart, you're a nerd, and then it's like, that's a bad thing. So then I think I kind of felt like, oh, I'm really good at this thing, but it's not cool. So I don't want to do this thing even though I'm really good at it. So I think just peer pressure scared me off a bit. And also it's the thing of not feeling like you have a say and power to say, I don't want to do this anymore. So there was, and again, I was a primary school kid going up into high school bands, and it was just the fact of, I think it was the thing of everything that was pushing me up into a higher level made me have to do things by myself. And as an adult, I have discovered I have a huge problem of feeling like I'm always alone. So in this recorder primary school band, I decided to I did not do it. So there was this performance we were doing for the retirement village just down the road sort of thing. Just, something to do, something to give us kids, people to perform in front of. And I was like, okay, yeah, cool, that's fine. I'm part of the band and stuff. And then, of course, Mr. Chapman said, you're going to do a solo and you're going to do this song. And I was just like, excuse me? What? I don't even get a choice? So you know what I did? Because it was an excursion and an outing, you needed to get your parents to sign a permission slip that you could go. Didn't do it. Didn't even mention it. When I mentioned it, when we're all kind of like ready to go, this, that, and whatever, and I said to the teacher, yep, I haven't gotten my permission slip signed. And then they're like, what do you mean? It's like, guess I can't go. And of course I was like told off and stuff. And the issue is I'm a good girl. So this was like a huge thing for me to just not do it. And like looking back on it, it's still the thing of just, again, parents, teachers, if the chance of like anyone actually watching this, if you have a child and you are in control somewhat of what that child does in regards to hobbies and what's supposed to be special interests and things they like to do, check in to make sure they actually like doing the thing. And make sure, as much as possible, do not just keep telling them, do this, do that, you're going to do this with this now. Actually give them a choice of, do you want to do this with your hobby? Do you want to do that with your hobby? Because that's what it felt like it became with clarinet. I also did choir in primary school, and so I kind of had a lot of things going on for me. So constantly being put in higher levels, constantly being told, you have to do this, you are doing this. And then having, I think, just the adolescent peer pressure of, this isn't cool anymore, I don't want to do this, I want to back out, but I can't back out. Yeah, so this performance thing that I was, supposed to do, be part of the band, have a freaking solo in, I was like, no, I'm not doing it. And then after that year, I'm pretty sure year 7, I basically almost stopped everything. I didn't join, I think I stopped doing choir, I stopped doing all the extra recorder stuff. I think that's when I fully stopped recorder. And then I still did clarinet lessons because I still felt like I couldn't just not do that either. So again, I'm still doing my clarinet lessons. I'm still doing the big high school band stuff. But again, it was just a thing of, I'm sick of, it's so frustrating to realize that, especially now when I'm going through a depressive state, it's so frustrating for me to notice all the issues I had of feeling, do not cry in my birthday video. Do not do it, Steph. Of looking back and realizing all these times that I didn't know I had a problem with things because the main thing was feeling alone while I was doing it, and then to now really having a lot of issues stem from feeling like I'm always alone. And now I've forgotten what I was just saying. Yeah, but I still had to do my clarinet lessons, but eventually it was in year 7, so that was 2007. I started trying to not be at concert band. I think there was one morning I just didn't go, and then I think my dad had dropped us off at school and he was doing some stuff with my brother, so I was like with my friends and I was like trying to hide behind them before school started so that dad didn't see that I wasn't at band. So I think maybe like the next week or sometime soon after that, I then, handed in my music folder and stuff and told Miss Baker, because she was a concert band person, I said, I don't want to be here, I don't want to do it anymore. And again, like, it was good because it was like the concert band pieces and stuff, you know, they were kind of hard. If you don't want to be there, you're not gonna practice that, you're not gonna work on that. So yeah, so one morning I handed in, and because it was kind of easier for me to cut it off with Miss Baker, because at the end of the day, I am not at your school, I am not a priority or a student of yours, so I don't have to be here. It was the beginning of band practice. I just handed it, gave her my folder, and I just said, I'm not doing this anymore, I don't want to be here. And I can't remember what she said exactly, and she was like, oh okay, like, are you alright and stuff? And I'm just like, it's too hard, I don't want to be here. She's like, okay, well, you're more than welcome to come back when you feel like it. And then then I just left. And then of course, then it was, you know, the Thursday morning, and then I was in school, in class in the morning instead of at band practice, and the teacher was like, why aren't you at band practice? And I said, I quit. And she's like, why? And I was like, it was too hard. It's like, maybe it wouldn't be hard if you practiced. And of course, I'm a fucking student, you're a fucking teacher, I don't have the power to talk back and be like, maybe I didn't want to be there. Yeah, so then it didn't matter how fun the beginning was with clarinet and recorder, like the last 2 years of me doing it was just loathsome. I just hated it. I did my lessons and that was it. And because I was good at it, it seemed like I was practicing, like I was just good. I was just talented at it. For also, you know, sake of using up the teacher's time with it, I was then having my lessons with a high school student, and then I was better than the high school student. And then I remember one lesson, the teacher being like, saying to other people who weren't doing as good but practiced the same amount as me, but it was just the fact that I was good at it. Then the teacher was like, look, Steph plays it really well, she practices it. And I was just like, no, I fucking don't. No, I don't. I didn't say that. Being on a pedestal is not fun. But all that was soon to change, because now it's 2008 and now I'm actually in high school. I kind of had a slight potential new excitement of continuing clarinet, because there was a couple of girls in my home group that were excited to start playing flute, and I said, oh well, I play clarinet, and they're like, oh cool, like we're gonna be you know, musicians, or like learning music together and all that sort of crap. So I kind of got excited about it, because I was like, oh my god, up here, like doing what I do, oh my god, this is great now, I have friends. But then it was still the thing of, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do it. I can't remember if I was in the concert band when I actually came again in high school. I don't think so, because I was still, because then I think I remember my clarinet teacher saying, oh, why aren't you like in the bands and stuff? And then that's when I was kind of like, I've hated this for years, I don't want to be here. Yeah, and I think from that interaction, it was a shock for the teacher, because I'm pretty sure that was the teacher I basically had since year 4. You know, like there's, again, if you're a parent or teacher, have some sort of say on what a child does. Just remember to make sure and check in that you're making them do something that they actually want to do. So, in year 8, you try a lot of things at my high school, so then of course in year 9 and onwards, you can start picking and choosing the subjects that are actually what you want to do. So you only did music class 1 term of that. I didn't get music until the very end of the year. So term 4 comes around, we finally start music, and I was kind of keen for that, because I did still have an interest in music. I just didn't want to play clarinet. I didn't want to be stuck with clarinet. So of course everyone tries to play around with different things so that everyone's got a chance of learning, finding the instrument that they want to do, and then start learning in year 9. So we're playing around, and I had Miss Baker as my actual music teacher. You know, we'd already been seeing each other like all for the entire year, and then when I was in her class, it's like, hey Dan, nice to see ya, another day in the office. When I was younger, I was happy and full of life. So she's getting us ready to teach us our first song that we're going to learn as a class band. So she teaches us all the drum part to see, you know, because basically the drums was everyone can play drums, but, you know, she's not going to make anyone play drums on a song if they can't get the rock beat or the beat that they had to do. So anyone who wanted to that could, she was more than happy. And then, you know, so we're all learning the very basic rock beat scene, who can actually, you know, move their feet and hands in the right coordination thing. And I was like, oh yeah, this is hell cool. Like, I'm like, you know, doing my thing. And then I got on the drums, and because it was literally just a basic simple rock beat, then I started playing and I was just like, this is what I want to do. And like, that was it. Like, that was my new obsession and my new goal. So I now had to figure out, how do I transition from clarinet to drums? And now, if you don't know, in the Band Wagon, the character for drums is obviously the amazing Sayer of Denunda. She's got an even bigger story than absolutely everyone else, and we will get to that most likely in part 2. So now, yeah, I just had this obsession with drums. Now, it was really great having music in term 4, because I probably would have gone crazy if I had music in term 1 and had to deal with that entire year of maybe not starting drums. So eventually I had to tell my mum that I didn't want to do clarinet anymore and I wanted to do drums. Because also, whenever we played in the class band, I was always just trying to get on the drums, just trying to get it. So at the end of the year, where I think all the classes did a show, all the, you know, the current music classes did a show of what they were practicing, I was able to sneakily get myself onto the drums for 2 of the songs. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, obviously I was very nervous about just trying to not play clarinet anymore. And I was like, it's gotta be obvious that I don't want to do it, right? Like, it's gotta be obvious. I never practice. You never hear me talk about it. It's obvious that I don't want to do it, right? Surely. So eventually I had a moment with my mum and I said to her, I don't want to play clarinet anymore, but I don't want to not do music anymore. I was like, I've got an instrument in mind. She's like, okay, what do you want to play? And I was like, I want to play drums. And she's like, I will never have a drum kit in this house. So that's cool. So yeah, so I was just like, fine, I won't have a drum kit in this house. So then for that next term, I then had to try and convince mum, don't be stupid and not let me do this, because I either do this or everything stops. Why are you making me continue to do something that I don't want to do? And it was kind of funny because we were out with friends in the car, like just, you know, driving wherever it was, and then I can't remember who it was, but then I think my mum's friend was like, you can't make someone do something they don't want to do. And I just piped in straight away, yeah, mum, yeah. Yeah, so eventually, yeah, obviously I got to play drums. So us year 8s had to fill out a form telling the music coordinators, music teachers, what instruments we want to learn, so they can obviously just, you know, slot us in, put us in where we went. So I'm in my music class. So I'm with Miss Baker in the normal music lesson. Mr. Duncan comes in. He's going through all the things. He's like, Steph, come here. I was like, yes. Because I think he was in general just having a chat. I don't remember if he had a chat with any other people choosing their instruments, or if it was just me. Because I was kind of a special case, but I don't know if he wanted to give some students a down low of the instrument and tell them stuff that they would be getting into and what they can do with it. So he pulls me out of the class and he's like, so I'm going through the instrument sheets and I've just gotten onto yours. I thought you'd be ticking this box and you've ticked this box. And I said, I've hated clarinet for the past 2 or 3 years. I want to do something that I want to do. And he was like, okay then. And then he started like talking to me about all the stuff that learning drums with them isn't just drums, it's about the percussion and learning like the vibraphones and xylophones and like on the bongos and like all these different things and the timpanis and like all the whole like percussion section. And he was like telling me all this stuff that I could be doing and what I could be learning by doing this now. And it was like so cool because again, being able to tell Miss Baker in year 7 I don't want to do band anymore, and she's just like, you're welcome to come back whenever you feel like it. And then Mr. Duncan seeing me, you know, make my change and be like, okay, you don't want to do that, okay, this is what you can do if you're gonna do this now. So yeah, A+ of that's what teachers should be. So I think in just a little bit before the end of the year, Mr. Matzik was my drum teacher. So he had all of us that said we wanted to play drums the following year. I don't know why he had us do this little thing of just like going through over some basic stuff, telling us what we needed for next year, because we did need a couple of different things. And then I think it was just like a thing of, this is what we're going to be doing. I do need you to get these things for your learning and your studying. So one of the main things is we needed one of these buggers. This is the practice pad. Yeah, so it was really great because then 2009 came in and I was a drummer now. And I could just like kiss goodbye the freaking clarinet. So I started in a group of like 3, or I think there was 4 of us total playing on drums in the one class time. Because obviously eventually people who aren't interested can just leave and not have to hate 2 years of their life. So we started in like, I think like a group of 4 or 5 actually. And then eventually everyone kind of dwindled down. And then at the end of all of it, I was the only one from my group who still played drums at the end of high school. So yeah, so Mum was like, okay, I'm not having drums in my house. So I had a practice pad to practice on, and you bet your ass I was practicing so much. Oh, this by the way is like another sort of dampener. I'm supposed to be able to, so this is on a thing, it spins off, takes that off. This doesn't fit on this thingy for some, it's too wobbly and it's useless. But that dampens the sound so that it's not as loud and you can be less annoying but still practice. So I usually just pop that on top, and when I don't want to feel like I'm being too loud and too noisy and too annoying, then I'll do some practices on that. Drums is the most important instrument to me because this is the one that I chose, and this is the one that I had to prove that I earned it. I don't think there was much of a, you know, like a sexism thing of, oh, you're a girl, you can't play drums. Like there wasn't really anything of that, but I think there was still that sort of thing in the back of my mind, I would say mostly, because I think the only other girl drummer was one other girl, and she was a year younger than me, but she had been a student of Mr. Matzik's for a few years now, so she had a lot more experience than I did. But it was only us 2, and the rest of the drummers or percussionists were all boys. But like that really wasn't too much of a thing playing in my mind. It was more of a, I don't know, I think it was the assumption that everyone is already against me, so I have to be amazing. So what I did is at recess and lunch, I was allowed to hang out in the band room and I practiced on the school drum kit. If I had a music lesson before recess or lunch, I would hang back and I would stay in there and practice drums. If I had a music lesson after recess or lunch, I would come in early before the teachers left to go and have their lunch and have their break. They permitted me to be the only one in the music suite, and I was allowed to just keep practicing. So I didn't practice too much at home because I had no need of it, because I was practicing at recess and lunch. Like, there were some days with the lessons in high school, so that you don't miss a chunk of your actual class lessons every week, they changed the music timetable so you'll miss 30 minutes of this class this week, but next week you'll only miss the end 15 minutes and the first 15 minutes of the next class. So there were some days that I had the earliest drum lesson that we got, because that's when Mr. Matzik came in. The earliest drum lesson we got was after recess. So there would even be weeks where I would practice at recess and I would already be there ready for my lesson. So I think it got to the end of the first year, or I think it was actually beginning of the second year. So I was in year 10 now. And yeah, almost all of the people I started with had, stopped going because they weren't feeling it anymore. And I was kind of like, cool, I get all his attention and I get to be taught everything and I get to be worked on. This is great for me. And then he made a comment one day. I think we were just talking about kit setup, and he was like, oh, so your kit at home, like, how do you have it set up or something? And I was like, I don't have a kit at home. And he was like, well, you're always practicing, aren't you? I'm like, yeah, I'm always practicing. He's like, how can you practice if you don't have a kit at home? Because I was like, I've only got my practice pad at home. He's like, how have you been practicing if you've not had a kit at home? And I said, I come here at recess and lunch. Like, this is where I just practice on this. And he was like, I don't know, like, I think he was just like, you're actually really dedicated for this. And I'm like, yeah, I chose to be here. So that was pretty cool. And then I think it was, I can't remember if it was in 2009 or 2010. I feel like I remember turning 15, because I don't think I got it for my 16th. So whichever one of those. So yeah, I didn't have a drum kit, and it was kind of obvious that I was getting very into the drums. So Dad thought, okay, we're not buying her, we're not getting her like a real drum kit. He's like, okay, but there's some electronic kits out there. So for my birthday, he took me to a music shop and he bought me an electric drum kit for my birthday. And that was amazing. Like, that just put everything on like a whole new level. So the electric kit was super awesome. If you are starting drums, I would highly recommend, if you don't have the space, or if you potentially have noise limitations, get an electric kit. Absolutely get an electric kit. Over the years, I have gotten rid of mine. Sometimes I regret that, but on the other hand, right now, it would literally just be sitting around taking up more space that we already don't have. Once I got my drum kit, or my electric kit, like, that was it. Like, all the practice sessions that I was doing at recess and lunch was now doubled, because now I could go home and do some more. Yeah, so that was amazing. So also pretty much once I was on drums, I basically went straight in to the concert band, became one of the percussionists. And it was kind of funny because then my sister was still playing flute as well. So Miss Baker did a bit of an introduction of the new people. And then so she was like going down the list, because it was kind of like a lot of us percussionists were kind of new. Or at least new to the band. So she just, went through whoever, introduced all the new people, and then, not that anyone, like, did know me, but then when she got to me at the end, she was like, and Steph has reincarnated into a percussionist, and then I was just like, hey. And then, of course, like, my sister was in the flute section, and then I don't get what that reaction was, but like, I clearly saw her in my view, and then like a friend said something to her, and it was so weird because it was just like, oh my god, she's a drummer? And then I saw my sister's reaction, and she was just like, and mum wouldn't let her. And I was just like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck? So anyway, that's just a moment. And something I discovered while being a percussionist is I love the timpanis. The timpanis was so fun to play. Like how in year 8 class band, I tried to get on the drums. In concert band, I tried to get on the timpanis. Like, that was it. Like, that was so cool. I really enjoyed playing vibraphone and xylophone as well. I've played a couple of pieces. There was one piece in concert band, I think it was in year 11, I had a combined piece where I had to play vibraphone and bongos for the one song, and of course they were needed at different times, so I could easily swap between one or the other. What's cool about percussion is if there is something in the piece where one percussion thing is needed for this bit, but then something else needs to be played at this bit, and they could be separate from each other, you can be playing like 2 or 3 things. So that's pretty fun. And I guess that's what a good chunk of the intrigue is being a percussionist, I could be anything. And something I have noticed about myself is I have a lot of hobbies. You know, I play 7 instruments. I do parkour when the weather is perfect and when I could be arsed and when I'm not socially terrified. And I do archery and, you know, all these other little bits and pieces, and the sewing and, you know, everything else. And it's a lot, and I have to do that because I'm too bored if I've only got one option. Just one thing is just too unsatisfactory. I don't know. It's just not enough. It's not enough to keep my attention. I have to be able to do something different. Yeah, so I basically went all out into drums and percussion. So the other band that I mentioned before that I wasn't aware of when I was playing clarinet and when I was in primary school. So we had the concert band, which had Thursday morning practices, but there was also a stage band which had Wednesday afternoon after school practices. That was a bit more of an advanced band because the stage band is like, it's kind of got more jazz music and jazz, like that sort of style band pieces. And they're very hard. Like, they're actually super duper hard. So in, I think, year 11, I joined stage band. Mr. Duncan got me and the other girl drummer, Carly. He did like an intro thing for us and said, because I think the current stage band drummers, one of them was year 12, so he was finishing up. The other one, he was in my year, but he just didn't want to do it anymore. I think he gave up drums. He was like really good. He was in, not my drum lessons, but he was in my music class and a couple of other my classes. So we'd have a chat and, you know, just this year. I think I had a brief crush on him for a moment as well. Yeah, so then of course stage band needed new drummers, and I guess Carly and I were noticed of we could be the next ones. And because Carly, you know, did have X amount of how many years of experience as well, and just because of how I was taking it, you know, it was great to have Carly because she had the potential of being in the band for another 3 years, whereas I, starting at year 11, you know, getting into the band at year 11, I only had 2 years where I could do it. So yeah, I did feel a lot of pressure with stage band because that was another level. Like, it was, and I think as well what was difficult for me for drums is there was a lot of things, especially in the stage band stuff, I would almost have a blank piece of music because it was just like the instructions were swing vibe, a shuffle, and then this bar is a fill, and it's like, what am I supposed to do with that when I've only been playing for 2 years and I've been always playing what's written. So that was difficult for me. And there is the competition that's a big competition for the stage band is the Mount Gambier Generations in Jazz. So I had this song and I had this fill. It was like a 4-bar fill. It was literally only me. And for the most part, it was a simple fill. And I have no idea why, but I was struggling so much. It did not matter how much I practiced, because then I'd get to the actual practice session and I still stuffed it up. And I remember, because that was a later practice and because I was older now, I was allowed to walk home. And the walk home was like 45 minutes. But I liked walking. I like walking. And I remember after that practice session, I was crying the entire way home. Because I was working on this piece so much. And I still wasn't good enough. And I felt like in the band and when I played clarinet, you can hide when you don't play something right. You cannot hide if you are the drummer. If you muck up, everyone knows. So yeah, so that was really rough, and I felt a lot of pressure of stage band, and I wasn't really liking the songs we were doing. I didn't find them interesting, again, because with stage band, the songs that we were playing, it was kind of like one drummer and that's it. So it was only Carly and I swapping between being on the drums, and I was like, well, because as she should, because she's the better drummer, Carly had like a bit more of the difficult pieces, and I was just kind of sitting around and I'm like I don't want to be here if I'm not doing something. But yeah, so I went to the conductor of the stage band, who was Miss Carr. Mr. Duncan wasn't here anymore, but Miss Carr came in, and Miss Carr was Mr. Duncan's wife, so we kind of got the same thing almost. Yeah, so I went up to her and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm gonna get us through the competition, but I'm done after that. I don't like this. This is too hard, and I don't want to be here. And I guess at that point I was like, no, this is giving me grief. Because 2011 as well is when my depression started as well. So yeah, so then crying about the fact that I stuffed up a drum fill in a practice session, that was so much more gut-wrenching and horrible than what it should have been. So yeah, but you know, Generations in Jazz comes around, so it's like, so we drive up to Mount Barker, which is like a 6-7 hour drive up. We camp out in caravan parks and in cabins and stuff, and then it's like a 3-day competition thing. So it's actually like that was the best decision, I think, because when I got to the thing, like, that was amazing. I had so much fun, and it was just like an entirely new energy, because we had all our competitions on the Saturday, and then on the Saturday night they have like big name jazz people actually like come in, do stuff for us. Like, some of them, I think we had, what was his name? Something Goodwin, like a very high up there jazz composer, I think. Gordon Goodwin, I think. So him and his band, and like just these really big name jazz musicians like putting on a performance for us at the end of the day. After all our competitions are done, after we're all finished, they just put on this amazing performance, and like that energy was just so amazing. And then I was like, nah fam, I'm staying. So yeah, so on the bus ride home, I was like, nah, I take it back, I'm staying, like, this is great. And then on one of the pit stops home, my friend bought a 4-liter tub of ice cream. So then we got like all these spoons, and then we're passing this tub of ice cream around the bus, and we're all taking a couple of scoops, and then it made our way back to us, and we're like, well, this is our ice cream, so we're all just eating it. And we had like Miss Carr eating it as well. And then and the best thing as well is I played my drum part perfectly. I did my fill really well. I was so good, and it was great. It was like everything finally came into place. And then as we're sharing this ice cream, I said to Miss Carr, I was crying over not being able to play this fill. And like I told her the story of I walked home crying the entire time, and because I was on a high of like, oh my gosh, like everything was amazing, I was like, oh my gosh, and I was like crying so much. And then she was like, oh, I didn't realize you were under that much pressure. Again, like in the moment I was like kind of brush that off, but then I guess that's a thing that, because there was more of a looked down upon view of people with depression, I'm not gonna show that obviously I'm sad or like I can't do things or like something is making me feel worse than it should. So yeah, so to then, you know, be seeing me be fine and then learning that this was so pressuring me so much that a simple mistake of not getting it right today made me cry for almost an hour. So yeah, so that's another thing. But yeah, so then I continued on for the next year, and the next year was pretty good, but again, like there was another thing in stage band that made me be like, are you freaking kidding me? Because again, everything was getting so insane. So with our division in year 12, in 2012 for stage band, there is a set piece that all of the bands have to play. It just so happened that that set piece was written by one of the people that was judging us. I cannot remember what his name was, but I still have the sheet music for it, I'm pretty sure. Give me 2 seconds. Something as well. This dude is like, here it is. Yeah, I guess that's his name. I mean, it's written on my sheet. So like this dude is one of the members of Cat Empire. I'm pretty sure this is RJ Irwin. I'll have to fact check that. But yeah, the song is called Beast from the East. If, I don't know, maybe it's on YouTube somewhere. I'll link it in the description, I guess. It is a banger of a tune. Like, it's an amazing tune. There's a good heavy, like, tom-tom, bass tom sort of beat and drive to it. And it's really fun to play. It's just so cool. So it gets to a month before the competition, and Mr. Matzik goes, this is really cool, but I might add a couple of little things to spice it up for you. I was like, okay. So then a month until the competition, he goes, here, play this. There's all these extra little bits and all these drives and stuff. And I was like, this is a completely new piece. And I was like, yeah. So of course I played it. And then as I started doing, like, I think I practiced it for a while. I had like a week until next practice session for the band together. So then I started doing this new thing, and everyone was like, Steph, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Like, that sounds cool. I'm like, oh, awesome. Thank goodness. Because, the competition's a week away and I've basically got a new piece to work on. So, yeah, and it was so cool. So then, the stages come on, everyone's taking their turns going up on stage. I think we heard the band who was before us play their piece, and I was like, no, we play it better, because, they were playing what was written, and I had this extra juicy, like, extra sort of thing. So, and it was really great, because I was just in the mood and in the vibe so much in that session. It was really great. There was one song that we played, I think it was by Gordon Goodwin. I can't remember the name of it, but it was insane. I was on like bongos and like, what's it called? The shaker thing. I don't know. I can't remember the name of it. I don't have time. I've probably been talking for ages, so editing this is going to be monstrous. So yeah, I had bongos. I had the tambourine. That's the one. I had a tambourine on a thing. Then I had these other two. They kind of looked like snares, but they had more of a sound of a tom-tom. So I don't know what the heck that is. But that's what it was. And then I don't think there was a cowbell on that. But anyway, so like my piece was insane. I was literally like one hand on the tambourine just constantly, And then on the bongos, I was like, dun 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 dun, and like that was my entire thing for the thing. And it was kind of funny because on a practice thing, because Carly was on the drums and she had accidentally stuffed up her drum part, her drum fill, but she didn't realize that I was banging the same thing on the back, so we still had that dum 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 dum, like that thing. And she did the thing, but then I was still doing my thing. And then at the end of it, she was like, oh, I completely didn't realize that you were doing a thing there too. Like, it wasn't until I stuffed up that I knew that you were playing along with me. I was like, oh, okay. Because like she was on the drums and I was literally like right behind her, so she wasn't going to be able to hear that this extra sort of banging was not from her. So yeah, so then we're at the competition and then it gets up to Beast from the East, and so I hop on that one. I also asked Carly if it was alright for me to do that piece because I was year 12 and it was a set piece, and she's like, yeah, cheers, like no worries, because I think she had also done the set piece in year 11, so we were like, yeah, like sure, like year 12 is the set piece, like that's cool. Yeah, so I come out and like the intro is the drums. so I get up there like straight away and it starts loud, and then the rest of the band comes in like the 5th bar, so it was like doom da 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 doom da, like that sort of thing, and it was like fuck yeah. So I'm like, we're all like playing our freaking high school hearts out, and then we finish our set piece, we go off, and then, so we're all like so excited because we played so well, and then this guy, one of the guys that is like organizing the students and like telling them where to go, like don't stand here, like all this and that, he comes up to me and he's like, hey, were you the one that played that song? And I was like, yeah. He's like, that is the best drums I've heard all day, like you were amazing. And I was just like, oh my god, like thank you so much. Which again, my drum teacher told me to do something different, and he was like, this dude has been listening to this song every day, like every band has played this song, he's been listening to it all day, and then I did something more with it, and he was like, that was amazing. So that was cool. So we go along, and like the rest of the weekend, the day, it's all going great. Eventually we get the audio of what the adjudicators are saying about our performance. So it gets to Beast from the East, and to put it politely or at its harshest, he hated it. And he hated it, like Erwin hated it, because he wrote that piece and I did not play what he wrote. And so immediately I was just like, and I was just, hearing overhead in the speakers, and we're all listening to how we played, and I'm just hearing that it wasn't good because I was doing something different. And on a songwriter perspective, yeah, like you're not playing what I wrote, like that's not what you're supposed to be playing. But on a player perspective, it's like I had a month to change all of that, and you're telling me we would have gotten better if I just played what was written, what I was supposed to do. And so like 2 seconds into like hearing that, or whatever, like halfway through the song, like I think pretty much everyone in Miss Carr was like, don't listen to that, Steph, we're playing it your way whenever we play it, your way is so much better. And yeah, but still it was like, with the state I was in, that's not something I needed to hear. So there was like, I wouldn't really say dramas, but like the rest of my year 12 and the music stuff, that was kind of iffy. I will not get into detail of this because I have a previous video of an Are You OK Day special where I talk about big events I've had with my depression, and one of those stories is about drums and something really nice that I needed to hear from Mr. Matzik. To cut a long story short, everything was really bad, everything was daunting, I was very in a bad state, everything was very depressing, and then he tells me he's so proud of me of how I've progressed and what I've done with drums. So if you want to have a look at that video, please do. I am sort of, but not really, trying to find time and work on the subtitles properly. Subtitles take a long time, so just bear with me on that. But yeah, look at that. So then I finish high school. And so it's like, what do I do with my music and my life now? Because in Year 12 as well, I was doing arranging and composing. So that's when I have a lot of pieces where in high school, that's where it kind of began, where I started songwriting. I think I have To the Rhythm that I've done. I don't know if there's another one. I'd have to double check that. I can't think off the top of my head. Those were written in high school. So then it gets to 2013. I'm trying to do the next stage of my life, which ended up only being a year because reasons. Not all the time do your high school plans work out. Sometimes when you actually get to do the thing that you thought you wanted to do for the last 3 or 4 years, you discover that you actually don't want to do it. So that was fun. But anyway, I had some friends, you see. They played instruments, you see. And so my friend one day says, hey, do you remember such and such, who was a year older than us but was still in concert band and everything? I was like, yeah. And she's like, well, she wants to start a band. Do you want to be our drummer? I was like, hell yeah. That's enough out of you. You're taking too long. We're going to leave it there for part 1. Stick around if you want to hear the rest of my ramblings for part 2. There will be a video link either in the description or at the end of the credits here, because we have so much more talking to do. My videos may not be perfect, but if they were, I would not be a mediocre musician. Keep watching.